legislative races where they hope to unseat the Democratic incumbent.
And just to be clear on those poll numbers, the most recent WGN poll showed
Right.
Rauner at about 36 and Dillard at about 23.
Correct.
That's 4 points down for Rauner and double the support in earlier polls for Dillard.
And so if we're to believe these poll numbers, and the timing indicates that perhaps the recent union support has made a difference.
Paris, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And back with some surprising new findings about Alzheimer's, so stay with us. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. But a new study released by the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center says the current number of reported deaths from Alzheimer's is only a fraction of the real amount. Why is there such a large potential discrepancy about the actual number of deaths from Alzheimer's? Joining us with some insights is the lead author of the report, Brian James. Brian James, welcome to Chicago Tonight. First of all, some basic information. Alzheimer's can be fatal, but how do you actually die from it?
That's a great question. And I think actually what you started with saying, many people do not realize, many people do not think of Alzheimer's as a fatal disease. But it starts in the part of your brain that controls your memory and your thinking. This part we know, most people know. But it actually eventually spreads to the part of your brain that controls more basic functions like breathing and swallowing and your heart. And this can cause fatal conditions like pneumonia or heart failure. And so that's how it leads to death.
And also the confusion of dementia, I understand. It can lead to lethal falls, which can have catastrophic consequences.
That can be true.
You mentioned pneumonia, and that's caused because, according to reports, when a body forgets how to shift its throat muscles to keep food from lungs.
That's exactly right. As I said, it spreads to the part of your brain that controls more basic functions.
Okay, well, let's take a look at some of the basic numbers. Here we have the numbers from the CDC. Its report on the number of deaths from Alzheimer's every year. The estimate is about 84,000. But your report says the actual number is closer to more than 500,000. How did you come up with this number?
Well, instead of looking at what's written on death certificates, which, well before our study they've been known to drastically underreport Alzheimer's as a cause of death. What we did is we looked at a group of older people, about 2,500 older people, followed them over time. We saw who developed Alzheimer's disease over that time and then who died. And we developed a risk of death from Alzheimer's disease. And then we calculated the excess deaths, the deaths above what you would expect in people this age that was due to Alzheimer's. And then we extrapolated it to the United States as a total.
So basically, why then how is the death from Alzheimer's being reported now?
The way that we did it in our study, or the way
that it's done just generally?
It's based on death certificates, which, when people fill out death certificates, they focus on the immediate cause of death, the more acute condition that happened on the day or the week of death.
So pneumonia.
Like pneumonia.
Pneumonia. Somebody died from pneumonia.
Disease. Pneumonia and heart disease are the most common ways that people with Alzheimer's are listed as dying. And they do die of those conditions. However, what put them in their hospital bed, wasting away for the last 10 years, Alzheimer's disease and dementia.
So what was the cause of that lethal fall?
Right.
It was disorientation because of dementia. The fall led to, it could be a cascading series of events.
So it's just a different way to look at what a cause of death is. What set off that cascade of events? Alzheimer's is very commonly in this country the conduit of that cause.
So what is the number of Alzheimer's death, based on your report, compared to deaths from cancer and heart disease?
So based on our report, the number of Alzheimer's deaths would be right behind heart disease and cancer, which are the number 1 and 2. It'd be the third leading killer in the United States.
And why is it important to report this undercounting?
A number of reasons. I mean, I've received multiple, 30 to 40 emails since I've been talking about this from people whose parents have died or grandparents have died of Alzheimer's, and they say, the quote is, it's a slap in the face to not have my parents' death recorded by, as what actually killed that person. And it can also lead to increase in funding. We know that the diseases that are known as the leading killers in this country often receive the most funding. And we just want people to realize Alzheimer's is a major killer.
Because so much of funding is largely a political decision.
That's correct.
And what you're saying is that that people, the general public, associate heart disease and cancer with death, but typically they don't associate Alzheimer's with death.
That's exactly right. And it's scary when a disease kills people, and people think, oh, well, with Alzheimer's, you're just, you're suffering some memory loss, you're not remembering things, and then old age eventually takes you. That's not the case at all. As I laid out, it is a fatal brain-wasting disease that will lead to death.
On the issue of funding, how much is Alzheimer's getting from federal sources, say, as opposed to heart disease and cancer?
Currently, the recent administration just gave about $100 million more of funding to Alzheimer's research, which brings the total funding this year to about $500 million. But that's still 1/10 of the funding that cancer gets. And we in no way think that cancer should be funded any less. It's just that Alzheimer's should be given the attention and the resources that it deserves to bring deaths down, as was the case for cancer in the past 10 years.
What do you see as the future of Alzheimer's statistics in terms of death, given how many baby boomers are in this wave of the aging?
That's right. The baby boomers are reaching retirement age, and unfortunately the number of, 5 million people are living with Alzheimer's in this country right now. That number could double or triple by 2050 because we do not have an effective cure, an effective preventative method, and therefore the deaths from Alzheimer's will continue to go up as well. And deaths from heart disease, are going down. Deaths from cancer have been going down for the past 10 years because of the wonderful efforts we've been making towards those diseases. We need a commensurate effort for Alzheimer's.
So what do you hope people take away from this study?
We just want to open people's eyes, the public, the governments, people who make these decisions, that this is a fatal disease and that 500,000 people are dying each year or more. We need to do something about this to curb these deaths.
Brian James, thank you so much for being here. Very interesting report.
Appreciate it.
And you can visit our website to read the full study, an article on so-called superagers, and to view graphics on Alzheimer's disease. And back in a moment with architecture critic Blair Kamen, so please stay with us.
This evening's presentation of Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by ComEd.
You're doing your best to take care of your family. So if you need help with your electric bill, just ask. We'll do our best to take care of you.
From a proposed Soldier Field expansion to development of the Chicago Spire, some big plans could be in the offing. Are these plans feasible? Is financing really possible? Here to discuss these topics and more is the Chicago Tribune's Pulitzer Prize-winning architecture critic, Blair Kamen. Blair, welcome back to Chicago Tonight.
Thanks, Phil.
First of all, we've been driving by Lakeshore Drive. You see that hole there, right there by the Chicago River, and you think, okay, well, that's never going to happen. But what is the latest on the potential for the Spire development to come back?
Well, there's news from the Tribune's real estate writer, Mary Ellen Pop-Malik, who's been covering the hearings on this case. Today, she reports there is a framework agreement between the two parties that have been vying for control over the Spire site. And essentially what's going to happen is that Shelburne, the Irish developer who had control over the great hole here, the O-shaped hole, is going to no longer have control over it. The controlling party is going to be Atlas, a Northbrook-based apartment developer. Related Midwest, which is another big developer in town, had been vying also for control of the site. They are going to get paid off, and they're going to exit. So now the bankruptcy is going to end, the bankruptcy phase of this, in which the Irish developer was in bankruptcy, is going to end, and now his creditors are going to get paid off, okay? And then the question will be, will this new development team led by Atlas of Northbrook be able to get construction loans to build this thing? That is by no means assured, even though there's a framework, a legal framework.
Well, because when the project went belly up, it was in 2008 when everything was going downhill. Yes. Now that things are getting better,
right.
Do the prospects actually exist for potential financing of this?
I'm not a real estate writer, okay? Right now, the apartment market is hot. The Spire was going to be a condominium development, and the condominium market, as far as I know, is still somewhat overbuilt. So I think that it's possible that the developers here may be looking at the next wave of condominium development. You know, this thing would take a while to finance and get off the ground. So, but with things heating up and, you know, everybody's stock market counts going up, it's not inconceivable that it could happen. But honestly, I wouldn't bet the farm on it.
Okay. Well, let's say that that financing is arranged, and the thing goes up.
A big if.
What do you think of the merits of the proposal? We've talked about this.
I'd still like to see it built. Yeah. I really do. I think it'd be a spectacular addition to the skyline. Now, I should say that since it was unveiled, Santiago Calatrava, the architect, has run into all sorts of problems. In his native Spain, he is being sued. He is being accused of wild overspending on projects and functional problems on projects in his native Valencia. His Ground Zero transportation center in New York is years behind schedule, way over budget. So
his star is dimmed a little bit, is what you're saying.
His star is definitely dimmed, and this could be a kind of a chance for him to, reassert himself, to kind of redeem himself. But honestly, Phil, I mean, I will be very surprised if this happens. I really will.
Let's move on to another topic that's been in the news, and that is Soldier Field and the push to expand. Why has the mayor raised the trial balloon, if it is a trial balloon, of the potential of Soldier Field expanding its seating?
Well, Rahm Emanuel wants Chicago to host a Super Bowl, and here, as you can see at Soldier Field, the stadium is wedged in between the historic colonnades. That led to the stadium having 61,500 seats, which is 8,500 short of what you're supposed to have for the Super Bowl, 70,000. Rahm wants to hold other events there and concerts and other things. So he thinks that it would be a good idea to add 5,000 or more seats to the stadium.
So how much would it cost to get it done? What are the estimates?
Ask the mayor.
Because it costs what, like 690.
It was a $690 million project.
That was back in 2003.
Correct. And now, only 11 years later, we're finding out that it is not fully adequate for today's needs. You know, if you want to have a Super Bowl in the Midwest, where do you have it? Indianapolis. Or do you want to...
Because the stadium down there, Lucas Oil Stadium, seats what?
Can be expanded from its capacity of roughly 63,000 to 70,000. It also has a retractable roof, which means it can host the NCAA Final Four. So, as time has revealed some of the inadequacies of this stadium, I think it's fair to say.
What do you think? What do you think they should have done in 2003 that they didn't do?
I always argued, and I argued on this show back then, that the best site for the stadium was just north of Comiskey, of U.S. Cellular Field. It would have been easy to build a 75,000.
You mean in the big parking lot that used to be the home of Comiskey Park before it was torn down?
Yes, the former site of Comiskey Park. You could have easily built a 75,000 seat stadium there, and we wouldn't be talking about this now.
Aesthetically, could it be done in a way that was appealing?
As one critic said, Soldier Field is already a train wreck, so just pile on more of a train wreck. I think the big issue is structural. In other words, the east and west sides of the stadium are very complex structurally. They do not really lend themselves to an expansion. The north and south sides are better. Those are the end zones, right, are better for an expansion. But the problem there is that if you stack up more seats in the north end zone, you would block views of the skyline from the Soldier Field press box. That was one of the reasons the city wanted to be at Soldier Field in the first place. So I mean, we'll see. But it doesn't look like it's an easy fix.
Well, let's talk about Preservation Chicago and their endangered list. My understanding is there was something on the list that surprised you. What was that?
Well, it was the Crawford and Fisk power plants in Little Village.
What are they? Describe it.
Okay, these are coal-fired power plants, big brick buildings. Here they are. And environmental activists in these neighborhoods, quite rightly, have wanted these things shut down because they were, creating air pollution that was practically as bad as what people have to breathe in China these days. So you would think that, people would just want to get rid of them. But Preservation Chicago said these are cathedrals of industrial Chicago, and that they should be saved. They could be turned into museums, lofts. In the preservation group's view, and it's not wildly inconceivable to think that. I mean, the Tate Modern
used to be a power plant. It's
exactly.
right there on the banks of the Thames in London.
Yeah, some of these have spectacular spaces. Question, as always, is money and use. Who's going to pay for it? The city right now is in terrible financial shape, which is in part why aldermen like Bob Fioretti are questioning the Soldier Field deal, expansion deal. So, coming up with money for this, well, good luck.
And also because they're power plants, potential problems with contamination.
Absolutely. There's always environmental remediation, which adds to the cost.
Let's talk about the Trump Tower, because there's a move afoot, to feature a 20-foot sign in the near future that says, what is it going to say?
Trump.
Trump? Just Trump?
I don't know. I mean, buy some retail space. They haven't sold any of that. I don't know. It'll be on the 20-foot high letters on the 16th floor. And this is pretty funny because 2 years ago I wrote a piece about the proliferation of signs on some of Chicago's buildings. And I said in the piece that even Donald Trump had not put his name in big giant letters on the top of his skyscraper. Trump wrote me a letter after that and said, but maybe I will. And
maybe you're the guy who gave him the idea. Thanks a lot, Blair Kamen.
It's all my fault. Thank you. Yes, of course. Blame it on me. No, this is Donald showing his true colors, and big ego, big name.
You don't like the prospect of the sign.
It's not a bad building. I mean, I think it's a decent building, a good building, better than we could have ever expected from him, and he's going to defile it. So, that's Trump.
20-foot high letters. As far as these things go, is that high? Is that a lot?
No, it's big, and they're going to be LED signs, and I wouldn't want to be living on the floor above the LED signs. I'd ask for a rent break from the Donald, because I'd probably be hard to get to sleep at night with the LED lights, supposedly going in your window. I don't know.
Listen, there's something I inadvertently skipped, and it has to do with something that's on the endangered list, the Preservation Chicago endangered list.
Yes.
The last L Station house is on that list. Tell us about this L house.
Well, this is the Madison Wabash house, and it's, I think, the oldest surviving station. There it is. It's scheduled to be torn down for new, there it is. You can see it has classical detailing, other elements, well, not exactly fancy detailing there, but it has other elements that are, really are historic. Preservation Chicago was citing images like these, where it has, you can see the classical columns and other details. The station is scheduled to be torn down and another one in the East Loop are scheduled to be torn down for a new station that will kind of be a contemporary gateway to Millennium Park.
So is that L house worth saving?
Honestly, Phil, it's not my L stop, so I'm not that familiar with it. I think that it's unlikely to be saved. The mayor is behind a new station that is kind of a jazzy L station, and unless there's a big civic outcry, I don't see it happening.
Last question for you, we're almost out of time, but are Chicago architects generally feeling the effects of the economic recovery that we just alluded to earlier? I
think so. Certainly the firms that are doing apartment buildings are, doing very busy. But not everybody. I think that the economy is still picking up steam. And, in some cases, firms are healthy and doing well, but not in all cases, certainly.
Blair Kamen, thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate it, as always.
It's great to be here, Phil. Thank you.
And that is our show for this Monday night, abbreviated so we can bring you special pledge programming. Programs like Chicago Tonight are not possible without your support, and we appreciate it. I hope you join us tomorrow night live at 7. Among our stories, we take a look at the new place some of Chicago's homeless population will be calling home. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Phil Ponce, and I thank you for watching. Good night.
Closed captioning on WTTW is made possible by Clifford Law Offices, proudly celebrating 20 years of the Robert Clifford Symposium on Tort Law and Social Policy at DePaul University College of Law.
I'm Phil Ponce. Tomorrow in Chicago Tonight, advocates for the city's homeless population have found a way to create model homes for them. That and much more tomorrow night at 7, right here on 11. Please join us.